exhortation to be in the mind of the speaker. Habituate yourself not to be inattentive to what another has to say, and, so far as possible, be in the mind of the speaker. This all leads to the ability to recognize when you are of the same mind, and highlights the importance of adaptability and starting anew. This is important when a true impasse has been reached. Releasing the four hands is a tactic used when you and your opponent are competing with the same mind and have reached an impasse. If you sense that you are battling with the same mind, discard your current methods and employ alternate ones to seize victory. In such a situation, it is dangerous to employ the same move more than twice. It is perilous to execute the same move repeatedly in a fight. It may be unavoidable to employ a tactic twice, but never do it 3 times. If an attack is unsuccessful, keep applying pressure and try again. If it still has no effect, quickly adapt and change your approach. Adapting first aligns with seizing the initiative. If you wait for your opponents to be the one to adapt, they will be the one directing the battle, and you will be left reacting. Starting anew is a tactic used when you and your opponent are tangled in a deadlock. In such a case, you must rid yourself of prior feelings and start afresh as if doing everything for the first time. This way, you can employ a new cadence and snatch victory. One method for finding such a cadence is shifting the scale on which you're focusing. When you are fighting with subtleties, suddenly expand your mind and transform into something big. Transitioning between large and small is essential in strategy. If, on the other hand, the enemy is not acting and you cannot ascertain their strategy, feign an all-out assault and they will reveal themselves. Yell A while feigning an attack to lure the opponent into making a move. The principle of being prepared to take bold actions to change the direction of an engagement or lure the opponent into making a move is important for combat. However, it can also be applied to life. As the saying goes, if you're not moving forward, you're falling behind. If no progress is being made for an extended period of time, you are likely regressing. In such cases, it can be advantageous just to start entirely anew. Of course, such situations do beg the question of whether what is required is adaptability or perseverance. You need to genuinely ask yourself whether you're adapting or just quitting. Broadly, the focus should be on when a true impasse is encountered. However, accurately assessing such things is what wisdom and training is all about. With this in mind, expect treacherous positions in life. Traversing problematic positions is also necessary at many junctures during a man's life. You should consider problems and treacherous positions as to be expected. Know that you may need to change direction when they occur, and that this change may take you off course. This is part of life, and why adapting is so important. Without an accompanying vessel, you must be aware of your position and ride the crosswinds or catch the tailwind. Be prepared for wind changes and to row 2 or 3 leagues to port if required. This is how one traverses perilous passages at sea. This mindset relates to overcoming problematic points in life and should be applied with due concern to the demands of the situation. This ability to accept abandoning positions and plans demands that we learn detachment from all things. In addition to detachment from material possessions, Musashi makes a point of emphasizing detachment from plans, intentions, and locations as well, because without this, you cannot truly be adaptable. For both generals and rank and file, it is harmful to entertain a strong preference for certain things. Having alternate plans is critical. Musashi lived much of his life as a ronin, a wandering, masterless samurai. Such a life demanded a certain dispassion towards loss and a supreme ability to adapt and accept constant movement. This mindset is eminently visible in multiple lines from his Dokodo. Never let yourself be saddened by a separation. In all things, have no preferences. Be indifferent to where you live. Do not hold on to possessions you no longer need. I would suggest tempering this for modern life. A Stoic perspective is that you should enjoy material possessions and the company of those close to you, but also be prepared for their loss. You should appreciate them, but not need them. To this end, negative visualization, or considering what life may be like without them, can make you both prepared for their loss and more appreciative of their presence when you do have them. Naturally, Musashi's detachment extends to life itself, and he promotes a resolute acceptance of death. This mentality is enshrined in Bushido, and not unique to Musashi. In fact, he even mentions it is by no means limited to the domain of the samurai, noting many across society would prefer death over dishonor. The same message can be heard in philosophies from around the world. However, it's usually stated with an eye to removing fear of the future or to inspire one into action in the present, given the shortness of life. Musashi implies a further point, which is that it also allows for clarity in calculated risks that others won't take. In exercising my ideas of strategy, I have put my life on the line many times in combat. I have learned the way of the sword by risking everything in the divide between life and death. It must be reinforced this does not mean being careless with your life, but rather not allowing the fear of death to dissuade you from courageous action. It is less relevant to modern civilian life, where mortal dangers are rarely encountered, but you could perhaps adapt it to the notion of not allowing the risk of loss to dissuade you from courageous action. Think to yourself, who else but I can access the direct path? And I will accomplish this in time. Then throw yourself wholeheartedly into training in the ways of my school. Tonight. You will find liberation once you have mastered the skills, and will naturally gain a sublime ability pertinent to all things. This is the necessary disposition of a warrior in the art of combat. Another positive reframe is that if you're suffering, is with the Book of the Void, which discusses emptying your mind and lifting the clouds of confusion. Having comprehended the truth of the way, you can then let it go. You will find liberation in the way of combat strategy, and naturally attain a marvelous capacity to know the most rational rhythm for every moment. Your strike will manifest on its own, and hit the target on its own. All this represents the way of the ether. He makes a point of saying ether is not ignorance or lack of knowledge, and neither is it that which cannot be distinguished. People tend to mistake this notion of ether as something that cannot be distinguished, but this is not the true ether. So too in the way of
Ungguan, dia baru buka.
From morning to night, you will find liberation once you have mastered the skills, and will naturally gain the sublime ability pertinent to all things. This is the necessary disposition of a warrior in the art of combat. Another positive reframe is that if you're suffering now and feel you have very little to be happy for, then you also have very little to lose in taking bold actions to improve things. Nothing lasts forever, and everything is in the process of becoming something else. Take consolation that this applies to you too. Masashi's treatise closes with the Book of the Warrior, which discusses emptying your mind and lifting the clouds of confusion. Having comprehended the truth of the way, you can then let it go. You will find liberation in the way of combat strategy, and naturally attain a marvelous capacity to know the most rational rhythm of the moment. Your strike will manifest on its own, and hit the target on its own. All this represents the way of ether. He makes a point of saying ether is not ignorance or lack of knowledge, and neither is it that which cannot be distinguished. People tend to mistake this notion of ether as something that cannot be distinguished, but this is not the true ether. So too in the way of combat strategy. Ignorance of the laws of the samurai by those who practice the way of the warrior is not represented as emptiness. Rather, it is the point after much study where confusion lifts and everything becomes clear. True ether is where all the clouds of confusion have completely lifted, leaving not a hint of haziness. This is quite an ethereal concept, and it may be that a proper understanding of it can only be attained from a lifetime of practice. It's also worth noting that Masashi possibly didn't get to expand on the chapter as much as he would have liked, as the book is signed just 7 days before his death.